Chosen one, you are no longer in a season of waiting, you are in a season of positioning. The delays and closed doors were not a tragedy, but a masterpiece of preparation. Because your character has been forged in the fire, you might want to prepare yourself for sudden wealth and the strategic release of kingdom-level resources. You are not someone who gave up. You are not someone who quit when it got hard. You are someone who stayed in the fire long enough to stop being afraid of heat. Most people do not understand what that means until they see what fire-tested people do when resources finally show up in their hands. Fire-tested people do not panic. They do not spiral. They do not hand what they have been given to the first person who flatters them. They move with the kind of quiet, settled authority that only comes from having already survived the worst version of a scenario. That is you. And that is exactly why this is your season. You were not just waiting. You were being built. The building was happening in layers you could not see from where you were standing. The first layer was character. Every time you stayed faithful when nobody was watching, every time you did the right thing when the wrong thing would have been easier, those moments were not just moral decisions, they were deposits. Heaven runs a ledger that tracks exactly those kinds of moments, and when God decides who gets trusted with generational wealth, the ledger is the first thing checked. The second layer was discernment. Every betrayal you survived, every moment you trusted the wrong energy and paid the price for it, those experiences sharpened something in you that money cannot buy and that no success school teaches. You developed the ability to read the spirit behind the smile. You learned to feel the agenda underneath the offer. You learn to sense when something is off before you can even articulate why. That discernment is going to be more valuable in the season ahead than any skill, talent, or connection you currently have. The third layer was the one that hurt the most. It was the stripping, the removal of the things you thought you needed, the relationships, the opportunities, the identities that turned out to be ceilings pretending to be floors. The stripping did not feel like preparation. It felt like punishment. But God was doing prerequisite work for a structure that needed to be built on bedrock, not sentiment. What is coming to you is too heavy for shallow ground. You were not behind. You were being built, and the build is done. The wealth that is coming is not going to arrive quietly. It is not going to slip in through the back door and settle gently into your life, while everything else stays the same. Sudden wealth is a detonation. It changes the temperature of every room you walk into. It changes the way people approach you, and most critically, it changes the way you look at yourself. And that last shift is where most people go wrong. The moment resources arrive, a voice shows up with them. That voice is going to tell you to make up for lost time, to spend, flex, establish and announce yourself. It is going to say you have been invisible too long, and now it is time to be seen. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is a trap, wearing the costume of justice. Sudden wealth does not change who you are. It amplifies who you are. If you step into abundance, still carrying the wounds of the waiting, the ego hunger from being overlooked, the burning need to prove yourself to people who doubted you, the money will not heal those wounds. It will tear them open wider, and it will do so in public. This is why so many people who receive sudden financial windfalls lose everything within a short stretch of time. It is not because the money ran out. It is because the unhealed version of themselves got amplified and made decisions that the healed version would have never allowed. The money did not fail them. They had not yet become who they needed to be to carry it. Your situation is different. You have been in preparation, not by accident, not because you are passive or slow, but because God has been intentional about the timeline of your elevation. Every trial was calibrated. Every season of lack was a training environment. Every moment of being overlooked was shaping the muscle that would later carry what the overlooked never could. You are standing at the threshold of the test that the entire preparation was building toward. The question is not whether you will receive what is coming, The question is whether you will receive it as someone who has been healed enough to handle it. The answer is yes. But you have to know what you are walking into. There are people who are going to show up the moment the wealth becomes visible. They are already out there, and when the breakthrough lands, they are going to move fast, coordinated and convincingly. The first kind is the closest and the most dangerous. These are the people from your struggle season who were comfortable with you precisely because you needed them. The dynamic worked for them because you carried potential they could claim proximity to without you ever becoming powerful enough to shift the balance of the relationship. When the wealth comes and that balance shifts, the response will not be celebration. You will see guilt, competition, withdrawal or demands for access, as though your blessing is owed to them simply because they were nearby when you had nothing. Watch for the support that suddenly develops conditions. Watch for the relationship that made perfect sense when you were dependent and stops making sense the moment you are not. If this touched your heart and mind, hype this video so more chosen ones can receive this message. The second kind comes disguised as opportunity. This version is more sophisticated because it does not announce itself as a threat. These people speak your vision back to you in language so accurate it feels like divine confirmation. They have the right connections, the right energy, the right timing. Some of them will be exactly the alignment they appear to be, but some will be sent specifically to contaminate what God is building through you. Some will fund your platform while silencing your message. Some will grow your income while quietly shrinking your integrity. The way you separate the genuine from the counterfeit is not by studying the terms of the deal. It is by discerning whether the deal comes with peace or with pressure. God does not use pressure. God uses peace. When something is right, you can sit with it, sleep on it, and return with more clarity than you started with. When something is a trap, urgency is built into the structure of the offer. Someone always needs an answer before you have had time to properly seek one. That urgency is not business strategy. That urgency is a warning. The third kind questions your rise publicly. These voices will minimize, contextualize, and explain your breakthrough in ways that require zero accountability on their part. They will call it luck, or timing, or anything other than what it actually is, which is the fruit of years of quiet faithfulness. Do not defend yourself. You do not owe them an explanation. The most powerful rebuttal you can give is a life so clearly built on purpose that the argument dissolves on its own. The first major financial breakthrough hits, the numbers shift, the space opens, the relief arrives, the access expands. You finally exhale in a way you have not been able to exhale for a long time, and then almost immediately everything gets louder. Not louder in a welcome way, louder in every direction at once. The opportunities multiply, the demands multiply, the attention multiplies, and underneath all of that external noise, something unexpected happens internally. The quiet that sustained you during the preparation season becomes harder and harder to access. This is the moment that determines everything that follows. This is where you decide, consciously or not, whether the wealth is going to run you or whether you are going to run the wealth. When you were in lack, your spiritual defenses were high because necessity demanded it. You prayed because you genuinely needed to. You moved carefully because every decision carried real weight. But wealth creates options, and options without discipline create exposure. When the constraint is removed, what was being held in check by the constraint rises to the surface. The people who built lasting legacies after sudden wealth all had one thing in common. They never forgot in the abundance what they learned in the lack. They carried the discipline of the dry season into the overflow of the wet one. They stayed committed to prayer, to wise counsel, to the willingness to be corrected, to the practice of moving from peace rather than from pressure. They did not let the wealth make them loud. They let the wisdom make them powerful. And there is a difference between loud and powerful that you will feel the moment it is said to you plainly. Loud says, "Look what I have." Powerful says, "Watch what I build." Loud chases validation from the people who doubted. Powerful is too busy constructing something undeniable to look back long enough to care. You are powerful. Act like it. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have gone quiet. Videos removed. Voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine. And when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. Nobody prepares you for this part because most people who understand it learned it the hard way after the damage was already done. Sudden wealth does not move the way gradual wealth moves. When money builds slowly over time, there is a natural acclimatization. The identity adjusts in real time. The character is tested in manageable increments. But when wealth arrives suddenly, when the shift is significant and fast, the gap between who you were before the breakthrough and the resources you are now holding can be deeply disorienting if you are not mentally and spiritually prepared for it. Your nervous system is going to have a reaction, and the reaction is not always going to feel like what you expected. Some people expect euphoria and receive anxiety instead. Abundance triggers a fear response because abundance was not the baseline. Scarcity was. The mind that spent years learning to survive in scarcity does not automatically feel safe in surplus. It keeps scanning for the threat. It keeps waiting for something to go wrong. It keeps generating reasons why the blessing might not last, because nothing this significant has ever felt this stable before. That reaction, that low-level dread dressed up as caution, is not wisdom. It is the mind's last attempt to pull you back to what felt familiar. And if you obey it, you will self-sabotage in ways so subtle that you will not even recognize them as self-sabotage. You will undercharge, undervalue, undersell, and undercommit. You will qualify your vision and apologize for the size of what God placed in your hands. The answer is to regulate your relationship with abundance, using the same intentionality you applied to surviving lack. The same discipline that carried you through the scarcity must now be applied to stewarding the surplus. The first season of sudden wealth is not the time for the biggest, fastest moves. It is the time for the deepest roots. Do not let the arrival of resources pressure you into speed. Build your infrastructure before you build your visibility. Secure the foundation before you add the floors. A structure that rises fast on a weak foundation does not just stall, it collapses hard, and you have come too far to rush what holds everything else up. There is a layer underneath the preparation that changes how you understand everything that happened to you. When you grasp this, the entire arc of your life is going to rearrange itself in your mind. God hid your worth on purpose, not because your worth was not ready to be seen. God hid it because if certain systems and certain rooms had seen your full value before you were rooted in your identity, they would have owned you and you would not have known it was happening until it was far too late to undo. Think about what you were carrying before the preparation was complete. The hunger for recognition, the sensitivity to being overlooked, the wound from never being chosen first. Those things made you vulnerable in a very specific way. susceptible to any offer that arrived with enough visibility and enough validation attached. And the people who want to use a gift without honoring the person carrying it know exactly how to construct an offer for someone who has been waiting for a long time. They would have given you just enough platform to feel chosen. In exchange, they would have directed your gift, shaped your message, and contained your influence to precisely the level that served their interests while never threatening their position. You would have felt like you were winning while the system ensured you never became powerful enough to win on your own terms. God saw that scenario, and the answer was not yet, not until you cannot be bought, not until the hunger for external validation has been fully dealt with, not until you are rooted deeply enough that no offer, no matter how compelling it appears, can pull you up by the root, and so the invisibility became your shelter, the being overlooked became your protection. You lived through the specific loneliness of being significant in a room that did not know it yet, not to break you, but to brace you, to make sure that when the rooms finally opened and the resources finally arrived, you would walk in having already decided who you are before anyone with money or platform had the chance to make that decision for you. Now the timing has shifted. The rooms are opening. And here is the thing that should make something rise in your chest. They cannot own you, because you no longer need what is being offered badly enough to trade yourself for it. What God entrusts to someone who cannot be bought, nothing in this world can steal. Here is a trap sophisticated enough to catch discerning people. Missing it does not just cost money, it costs alignment, and alignment is harder to recover than finances. When God is preparing to release something significant through you, the response in the spiritual realm is not a direct attack on the blessing, it is a substitution. You will be presented with an almost right version of the thing God has prepared, something that looks like the blessing, feels like the blessing, and even produces some of the outcomes the genuine blessing would produce. But it is fundamentally misaligned with your assignment, in a way you will not discover until you are already deep inside it. This is the counterfeit opportunity. It arrives as a deal that came together faster than it should have. It arrives as a partner who is almost right, but asks you to compromise in one specific area that feels minor at the time. It arrives as a platform that gives you reach, while quietly eroding the message that made your platform worth having in the first place. The genuine opportunity expands your calling. The counterfeit one reroutes it. You end up with more reach and less purpose, more revenue and less impact, a larger audience and a quieter truth. That trade is not a blessing with a delay. That is a cage wearing a crown. The reason chosen ones fall for it is not a lack of wisdom, it is timing. When you have been waiting and something finally shows up that looks like the exact answer to the exact prayer you have been carrying, your guard lowers in ways you do not even notice. The relief of finally seeing movement is powerful enough to temporarily override the discernment that took years to build. This is exactly why the preparation season was also training you in a specific kind of patience, the kind that stays steady even when the almost right thing shows up right before the actual right thing arrives. The real thing is worth the extra time it takes to confirm. Peace confirms. Pressure deceives. Trust that distinction every single time. There is something you need to be prepared for that will not look like a problem from the outside, but will feel like one from the inside. If it arrives without warning, it can shake you in ways that no external challenge ever could. The wealth is going to be accompanied by a loneliness you did not anticipate, not the loneliness of rejection or failure, the loneliness of elevation, the kind of quiet that settles in when you realize the circle that carried you through one season is not automatically equipped to carry you into the next. Some people who were genuinely in your corner during the struggle will drift when the struggle ends, not because they lack loyalty, but because their role in your journey was tied to that specific season. The transition will not always be dramatic. Sometimes it is just a gradual quiet, fewer real conversations, the slow realization that the shared language of the hard season no longer fills the space between you the way it once did. Release those connections without bitterness. Holding on to seasonal relationships out of loyalty to history is one of the most costly mistakes you can make in a season that requires your full energy and attention to be pointed forward. The space that opens is not meant to stay empty. God intends to fill it with a different caliber of connection, people already operating at the level you are growing into, whose counsel is sharp and honest, who can challenge you without competing with you, and celebrate your wins without counting them. Those people are coming. The solitude between the old circle fading and the new one forming is not abandonment, it is curation. Use the quiet deliberately. It is in that specific stillness, the one that sits between what was and what is next, that God speaks most clearly about what the next chapter of your life is actually supposed to look like. Do not run from the silence. Sit in it long enough to hear. When the wealth lands and the breakthrough is undeniable, a voice is going to rise from somewhere you did not expect. The voice is going to ask one simple, devastating question. Are you sure this is really for you? It will dress itself as humility. It will sound grounded, responsible, even spiritual. It will catalogue every stumble, every season you fell short of who you wanted to be, every moment of weakness or doubt, and it will use all of that as evidence for the argument that you somehow ended up at a table that was set for someone more qualified. That voice is a liar. Call it by its name and dismiss it without negotiation. What gets called imposter syndrome in the context of sudden wealth is not actually about being unqualified. It is the residue of being underestimated for so long that part of your identity built itself around the underestimation. You spent seasons operating under the label of not yet, and that label left an imprint. Now the imprint is sending signals based on old terrain, telling you that not yet is still where you belong. Even when the season has clearly shifted, you are not unqualified. You are the most specifically qualified person for this moment, because you were specifically prepared for it. Every element of the preparation, including the parts you are least comfortable with, was a precise calibration for exactly this level of responsibility. Authority is not the absence of a difficult history. Authority is what develops in a person who has been through enough that nothing in the new territory can genuinely catch them off guard anymore, and you have been through enough. So when that voice surfaces, and it will, the response is not a debate. It is a short, settled declaration. I was prepared for this. I was chosen for this. I am not leaving this table. Say it, mean it, build from it. The mission cannot afford for you to spend the opening of your breakthrough season arguing with a voice that exists only to bench you before you even take the field. You are in the game. Play. There is a transformation happening underneath all the external shifts. This is the one that will determine whether the wealth lasts, and it is the one that almost nobody discusses openly. You are not just becoming wealthy, you are becoming resourceful. Wealthy describes what you have. Resourceful describes who you are. Wealthy is a number. Resourceful is an internal operating system, a way of moving through the world that turns every problem into an opportunity, every gap into a mission, and every unmet need into something that your specific gifts were designed to address. God has not just been increasing your income potential. The thinking itself has been rewired. The way you see a problem now is fundamentally different from how you saw it in earlier seasons. The way you approach a decision is more layered, more patient, more strategic. The clarity you have about where things are and where they need to go is sharper than it has ever been. And that clarity, that expanded internal capacity, is the infrastructure the incoming wealth is going to run on. Wealth without infrastructure is a flood. It destroys instead of nourishes. It overwhelms instead of builds. The people who receive sudden financial increase without the internal capacity to channel it wisely end up disoriented and unable to explain what happened to what they once had. You are not in that group. The internal infrastructure has been under construction for longer than you realize. Every season of operating with limited resources trained your relationship with money without the distortion that excess creates. Every difficult decision made under real constraint built a muscle that will now operate at a much larger scale. Every time you chose not to spend what you did not have, even when the pressure to do so was intense, that was not just restraint, that was rehearsal. The rehearsal is over. The performance is beginning. What will distinguish you in this season is not the scale of what you receive, it is the wisdom with which you carry it, the settledness, the refusal to be seduced by noise, the ability to say no to what is shiny, because what is significant demands your full attention. That kind of settledness is rare in a first season of abundance. Most people require years of painful lessons to develop it. You developed it in the preparation. Now it is going to make you someone who does not just receive wealth, but multiplies it into something that outlasts the receiving. There is one more item on the preparation checklist. It has been placed here intentionally because it only makes complete sense after everything that came before it. You have to forgive the people who made the waiting harder than it needed to be, not for them, for the mission. Bitterness is one of the only things that can survive a financial breakthrough and still steal the life from someone who finally has everything they need to truly live. You know exactly who this is about, the ones who should have supported you and chose competition instead, the ones who left when leaving cost you the most, the ones who discredited what you were building while you were in the middle of building it, the ones who will now appear at the edges of your new season, wanting proximity to an abundance they had no hand in producing. The temptation to let the elevation become the revenge is going to be real. The pull to make the success so undeniable that everyone who underestimated you is forced to sit with what they missed. You will feel it. Every ounce of energy you aim at proving something to your past is energy that cannot go into building your future. And your future, the magnitude of what you are being trusted to build, demands everything you have. Forgiveness is not amnesia. You do not have to pretend the damage was not real. You do not have to restore access to people who demonstrated they are not safe with it. Forgiveness means you remove the anchor they attached to your soul without your permission. It means you stop allowing their choices to have ongoing access to your peace. You free yourself, not them, from the weight of something that was never going to be resolved on their end anyway. Your peace is not a consolation prize. It is the foundation that every lasting thing gets built on. Guard it accordingly. Right now, there are people carrying visions that could genuinely change things, real visions, powerful ones, but they cannot get the traction those visions deserve, because no one with resources has ever pointed a light in their direction. There are missions that are rich in purpose and completely starved of funding. There are communities that have been written off by every system that was supposed to serve them. There are gifts sitting in the dark that will never fully surface unless someone with access and intention decides to invest in them. You are about to become that someone. That is the assignment attached to your abundance. And when you begin to move in that direction, when you start funding healing instead of just experiencing it, when you start building things that will outlast your name, when you start answering prayers that were never addressed to you personally, you will feel a clarity and a satisfaction that no material purchase has ever come close to producing. God could not hand this assignment to someone who would use the resources for performance. The assignment required someone emptied of the need for applause, someone whose identity is settled enough that the magnitude of what they are being trusted with will not tip them into ego. It required someone who can stand in rooms full of resources and still remember exactly what it felt like to be on the outside of those rooms. Not to perform that memory for sympathy, to let it inform every decision about who gets helped next, who gets seen next, who gets invested in next. That person survived the preparation. That person built character in the quiet, when character cost something real. That person is you. The sudden wealth that is coming is real. It is already in motion, but it is not the peak of your story. It is the opening of the chapter your entire journey has been building toward. The breakthrough is not the destination. It is the beginning of the work you were always supposed to do. And the depth of that work, the reach of the impact, the durability of what you build will be determined entirely by whether you remember, in the abundance, everything you learned in the lack. Stay built, stay rooted, Stay strategic. Do not let the wealth make you loud when wisdom already made you powerful. Do not let your new options make you reckless when your old constraints once made you careful. Do not use the resources to announce your arrival. Use them to build the assignment. The people you are being sent to serve, the ones holding their visions in the dark, waiting on someone with the resources and the courage to point a light in their direction. They are the reason you are here. Show up for them with everything this season is about to give you. And when the weight gets heavy, because it will, and when the opposition escalates, because it will, and when that internal voice tries one more time to convince you that you are standing in a place meant for someone else, come back to this truth. You were chosen, not in spite of your story, but because of it. The preparation was not incidental, it was essential. The God who delayed the blessing did not do it to punish you. That delay made you indestructible before placing something irreplaceable in your hands. You are not an imposter at this table. You are the reason the table was set. The same thing that looked like your biggest delay was actually your greatest protection, and the same thing that felt like your lowest season was actually your most expensive preparation. You paid for this seat at a price most people would not have survived paying. Now sit in it, own it, build from it. The wealth is not just coming, chosen one, it is already yours. Go carry it.